welcome. This is it's a Vinyasa class. Now what I'm doing with these evening classes is we're kind of doing around 45-ish minutes. I might go over a couple or under a couple, but right about that much. So you can go do like other things you might have to do in the evening. We're gonna start this practice in a child's pose with furry people potentially on our mats. So we'll see how that goes. You can use a pillow or something like that if you like. I'm just gonna kind of find my child's pose. And some people's hips go all the way back to their heels, mine don't. So I like my arms overhead more. Some people will find they really like the arm to be beside the body, so you can check into both of those. I like a wider knee. And then I do these little like just subtle shifts from side to side while I breathe. So disconnect from all the stuff you've been doing. Oh, arrive in the present moment. If you're at home and you're watching this recording with either with your mic muted or with on YouTube, you can put on some great music to play in the background. Oh. And then we'll just kind of tune in to the moment. Oh. Stay for like another 4 breaths or so, 5 breaths, somewhere in that range. I'm going to add a little subtle movement. I'm just going to walk my hands over so that I've got a longer side on the right side and the left side's a little curled in. And it's kind of staying with this child's pose idea, but drawing the armpit toward the ground on the right side. And just enjoying that little extra bit of stretch through my lats on the side of my waist. Oh. I'm going to do one more breath on this side. You can do more or less. Oh, I'm going to wander back to the center and just see, is there a difference between the two sides as I take a big breath? That's one of the things that really interests me about practicing yoga is like, does the little movement that I do actually make a difference in how my body feels? So I'm always checking in. It also keeps me present in what I'm doing and not thinking about other stuff. Oh. And then I'm gonna come on back around to the center on this side. Oh. And again, just appreciate any change. Now I'm gonna go from my child's pose right into a cobra. If you want to do like more of a cat or kind of situation, you can definitely do that. So you're kind of unfurling the legs. Change in the shape that my back is doing just a little at a time. So I'm just going to go inhaling into cobra, exhaling, coming back down. If you and cobra are not the best of friends, this is a way to kind of make friends. Just kind of a flowy one. rather than one that you hang out with for a long time. And then I like to add these little rhythmic movements here and there. So I'm rolling my shoulders and then lifting again, coming down, turning my head the other way, rolling the shoulders, coming back up. Oh, I'm gonna do that one more time. Rolling the shoulders. And then come into a little cobra. Now I'm gonna slide into a sphinx, and my elbows are actually resting on the floor. They're a little bit ahead of me and a little bit more narrow than the shoulders. For me, that feels like the best sort of setup. It makes my shoulders relax into that rather than hunch, right? So find the place where your shoulder blade feels like it kind of integrates into your back. And then drop your chin. We're just gonna turn and look over one shoulder. You might be able to spy your little toes back behind you, maybe not. It doesn't matter if you can look, if you can find them, but it's where you kind of direct your gaze. How's that? In that general direction, whether you see the toes or not, it's of no importance. Just coming back to the center, lifting and directing the gaze on the opposite side. And do one more of those on either side. Just kind of unwinding a bit as we go along. Okay, so now I'm going to take this into downward facing dog. And before I do that, I need to get my mat a little damp. Okay. You may not need to get your mat damp to make it sticky, but I do. All right, so once you're here, I'm gonna kind of pedal the feet up and down, move the hips a little bit, move my shoulder blades up and down, and just sort of feel this pose out and the little things that it has to offer. And then when you're done with your downward dog, now I like a downward dog for a while, but if you kind of get to a place where you're done, just walk your hands and feet together. Now I'm gonna take a wide stance with my feet. When you're done, you can join me there. Turning my toes just a little bit to the outside. Now you may modify this a little bit more narrow, a little more wide, depending on how it feels. So I'm swaying over to my left side. Just gonna aim that leg, bend the left knee so it kind of lines up just over the toes, and then taking it back into straight and feeling that stretch through this kind of inner area of my hamstrings and inner thighs. Coming back, bend in this knee, the other leg goes straight. The more sensitive side is this side because I'm kind of leaning over here to the left. So I'm going to come back to the center, lift up halfway, exhale, fold in, and then doing the same thing on the other side. So I'm going to come over this way, aim it so when I bend my knee, my toes are facing the same direction, and then kind of pulse between this bent knee and straight leg, staying over here in this general right direction. And just creating a little pulsation here tonight. Coming back around to the center, coming up halfway, and then all the way to standing. Now when you get to a standing position, go ahead and give yourself a little bit of movement in the way that you would like, stretching, wiggling, shaking, whatever works for your kind of sense of noticing and being present for your pose. And then when you feel ready, you can come to a mountain pose. Now, my mat is round on purpose because this works really best for filming, but you probably have a rectangle because that's the way most mats are. So just pick one of the shorter ends and make that the top. It really doesn't matter which way you go, just make one end at the top. And then find a mountain pose near the top of that. So there's room behind you on your mat to step back into. So finding ourselves in a kind of even place where both feet are on the floor, there's an even amount of weight right to left, front to back, inside of the foot to the outside of the foot. And sometimes we have habits of standing where we kind of lean a little bit, so those might also just become apparent. Taking yourself nice and tall, noticing how that might impact the relationship your abdominals have to your spine. And holding that spine nice and tall. And then notice too, okay, where do the arms naturally want to fall? Some people like to turn the arms out. I'm not a fan, but if you like to, go for it. And then we'll take 2 more breaths, just memorizing this pose because we're going to come back to it. Now we're going to take the weight into the right leg. The left leg is going to lift up, and you can straighten that leg up or just leave the knee bent. You want to add on to the challenge of holding the balance. You can put your arms up or out. Up definitely makes it a little more challenging for me. Taking 1 more breath here. We're going to step this guy back, and I'm going to land in a high lunge to start with. So the high lunge means both my hips are pointing forward. I'm on the toes on the back leg, and my front knee is not going to go past my ankle, much if any. Okay, so that's the idea. So it's a little wobbly, there's a little bit more of a balance challenge, bringing the arms up, bringing them back, pushing them forward. So I've got to challenge myself to move and hold that steady place at the same time. All right, so now I'm going to fold forward and add a twist to this. Now my arms are not long enough to really get to the floor, so I'm going to employ a block. But if you've got long arms, you'll be just fine. So I'm going to press down into my arms. I'm going to try to hold my pelvis nice and straight, lift my breastbone, twist my upper back, and feel for that moment where my left hip starts to help me twist into the right. I'm just going to stop right before that moment. Press the heel and the knee away from each other. Nice big breath. And then exhale, come back. Now we'll step back into down dog, or you can go directly to a plank. And we'll throw in, either stay there or add a little vinyasa, coming into a plank and lowering. And then coming through. All right, take your left leg up and bring that guy in and curl up around it. Stretch it back. And then we're just going to step it forward. Now you can go straight through the middle or out to the side. Put your weight on your feet. Step your right foot up. And then flow through. Coming all the way to standing eventually. And then finding your way into that mountain pose. And feeling. Is the mountain pose a little different now that we've done one side but we haven't done the other? Is there a difference in the left and the right sides, or just in general? So same notion, other leg, shifting the weight into the left leg, bringing the right knee up, and then holding steady with that balance. Taking a breath. And then we're going to try to step back into that high lunge and catch and find the balance. Maybe it works out tonight. Maybe not. So the arms are up. And then if you can, bring your elbows back, kind of squish the shoulder blades towards each other a little bit. Push forward, arms up. So just taking the shoulder blades on a little journey while we try to hold steady with the abs and the hips. One more. All right, and we'll add our twist. So I'm folding, again, lengthening out. I want to find that point where I can twist right before I drop my right hip. That's my spot to stay in, but you can do the hip drop, that's fine. In fact, for some people with sacroiliac issues, letting the hip go with you can help take away some of that pressure. Taking 2 more breaths. And then we're going to step ourselves back and come into that downward dog, or you can go right to plank. Add your vinyasa, which is just a sequence of poses put together in a particular way. And then coming back. Now that right leg's going to go up. We're going to bring it in, give it a little hug, stretch it back, step it forward. Get your weight on your feet, step your left foot up. Come up halfway. Oh, fold in. Come all the way to standing. I work around my plants. You may not have those issues at your house. You might be working around your pets. So we're just gonna find our way back to mountain pose and notice. Just checking in. Is there a difference now with this pose? So one of the things I find really interesting about yoga poses is that when I do a sequence of movement, there's a sort of, I don't know exactly how to describe it, like a little hum or a buzziness, just a little more vibrancy to the way it feels to be in my skin. Notice if there's any difference for you, and you can make up words or not, but just feel it. So we're gonna shift the weight again over to this right leg. Now, there's a couple of ways to do this pose. You can reach down and grab your foot behind you. Some people can reach over the head and grab the foot. I cannot, but I want to do that action. So to do that, I'm going to use a strap. So either way, we're going to do the dancer pose or the Natarajasana. So I'm going to put the weight in my right leg. And if my left foot will comply, I'm going to take that up in the air behind me. And then reaching back with both hands, I'm going to hold the strap instead of trying to hold the feet. That's just never going to happen in this lifetime. So this is good. But I like the way it stretches my triceps. Now, if you're using a strap, if you start to fall, let go with your hands so you can catch yourself without getting tangled up. Ooh. So one more breath. Ooh. And then theoretically, we're going to step back into Warrior Two, but I'm going to have to do that after nearly falling. Whee! So here we are. So Warrior Two, what the main thing with Warrior Two is we're not trying to do anything with the hips that they don't naturally want to do. And so this leg, we put the knee over the ankle. And then the hips might be at quite a diagonal. We're not trying to flatten this, we're trying to just follow our lines. So based on how your anatomy is, your hip might be more like a 45-degree angle, wherever it lands. Hold the legs nice and steady, let the hip ride with the legs, and then we can work the side waist and the spine with some little back and forth, a little reverse, and a little side angle. Oh. And I'm trying to do most of this with my core and holding steady with the legs. So one more. Oh. Now, straighten out the front leg if you want more hamstrings, leaving the knee bent if you want less. We're going to do either a side angle or a triangle. I reorganize my whole pose. Again, there's this notion that I'm supposed to tuck this hip underneath this hip, but my hips don't like that. So I let this butt cheek stick way out behind me. And again, there's more of a diagonal slope here. So that is really just, you're going to find your way into your pose, but don't be afraid to break people's rules. Feel it in your own body. Break my rules too. Lengthen out. Now this arm for me, I can take it straight up, but I'm actually kind of interested, just kind of leaving this shoulder blade sort of planted and really kind of paying attention to the legs. So I'm taking the arm out of it for now. But you can do either. Sometimes I like the way this feels, sort of almost like you've got a pair of wings extending out of the shoulders. Gets a little metaphoric up in here, y'all. One more breath. Oh, okay. We're gonna take this whole thing around to the center. Now, you can turn the toes in so that they point forward, or you can turn the toes slightly out. Here's how you'll know. If there's a sense in your knee, like there's a twisting or a binding, or also in the hip socket, turn your toes out until it feels like that disappears. So some days I don't feel this, but some days I do. When my toes are turned in, especially on the right side, there's just like this little pressure right at the hip socket. If I turn the toes out slightly, that pressure disappears. So feel for yourself how that goes. And then you can just hold this pose, just both legs straight bending, or you can kind of follow me. I'm gonna do this little meander, not a big one, I'm not trying to go crazy, but just a little back and forth, slight shift of the weight. I don't want to put my knees into precarious places. So it's just to the point where the knee is bent. I like these kind of rhythmic, more somatic movements these days. It feels nice. All right, so we're gonna step ourselves into down dog by kind of walking things around and then step in the leg back. Oh. And again, you can pause here or go right into plank. I always pause with down dog. It's another one of those little poses that I like to sort of touch down on and see how things have changed. Oh. Okay, so we're gonna take the left leg up. We're gonna see if we can bring it towards this upper left arm. Oh. Stretch it back, step it forward, and then put your weight on your foot and step the other one up. Come up halfway. Oh, fold. We're gonna come all the way up to standing. Give it a big stretch. Oh. And then we're gonna repeat that whole thing on the other side, but let's find mountain pose first. I'm just gonna get myself, while I'm jiggling around, kind of ready to go. Okay. Oh. So find the weight on your feet. See if you can feel the difference between the left side and the right side. There might not be one, but there might be. And for me, flowing and talking at the same time makes me a little breathless, so I'm just letting my breath catch back up. All right, so weight in the left leg, taking this right leg up, and again, you can reach back behind you and hold on that way or over the head, maybe with or without a strap, depending on your range of motion. And then trying to hold steady. I'm playing with my shoulders here, kind of how much abdominal work do I do, then finding my eyes really steady gaze. 2 more breaths if we can do it. Good, and then I'm gonna let go and step back and find my warrior 2 shape. And again, feel it. You're gonna know where your feet should land based on how your hip sockets, low back, and other places kind of mesh with this pose. And again, we're looking for the thing that feels most coherent and aligned to our own anatomy, not external notions or objects in the room. Sometimes this one coming back to reverse warrior can get a little pinchy, but if you rotate the ribs a little bit, it might feel much nicer. So don't be afraid to play with that. Now again, we're either gonna do a side angle or a triangle, and you get to pick which one you like better, bent knee or straight. You get to pick all of the little flavoring agents. Are you doing a straight arm? Are you doing a wrapped around arm? Are you kind of holding onto your waist? What's your flavor additions? You're your own yoga barista. Feeling the pose, and maybe the pose is always a little liquefied. That's okay, last breath. And then we're gonna come around. Again, I'm gonna keep this kind of in motion, and I'm kind of feeling out which way my feet should go based on how this goes. Now I'm gonna go for a deeper knee bend on this side because I feel like I've sort of created the opportunity for that through the other poses, but you can stay, again, more shallow here. Honor your own body's needs. So I'm going to do one more set here. And I'm going to come back to the center and let myself hang for a moment. Now it's pleasant for me to let my body hang. So with a straighter leg or a more bent knee, what we're looking for is, we don't want a sharp sensation right at the sit bone. Something that sort of encourages to stretch all the way through the leg is what we're after. So for me, straighter is better because it distributes the load much better than a bent knee. But you feel it out for you. Oh. Oh. Alrighty, and then we're going to come to down dog. Oh. Okay. Oh. And then throw in our little vinyasa sequence. And we'll come back to down dog. All right, now that right leg goes up. We're going to try to see if we can get it towards that right elbow. Maybe it even touches. Reach back, step forward. Wherever it lands, bring your feet together. Come up halfway. Exhale, fold. And then we're going to come all the way up to a standing position. Again, lengthening. I'm pulling from my side waist more than I'm bending backwards. Oh, makes me feel taller. And then find your way into your mountain pose. And one more time, we're just going to check in. Check in with the mountain. Oh. Now, done both sides, same things on both sides. So there's definitely an evenness of sensation. But I like there's a much lighter, definitely a pleasant warmth. Especially on a cool fall night. So, we're going to come into a squat. Now, everybody's hips are a little different. My butt does not go all the way to my heels, and I need a wide place. But I'm going to get my hips as low as I can go. You can stick with the hips about as high as your knees. You can fold forward so that your forehead moves towards the floor, or keep your back a little bit more aligned. 2 more breaths. And then from this squat, I'm going to take a forward bend. So I'm just going to straighten out my legs, come up halfway. Now I'm going to play a couple yoga blocks because I find them helpful with my little short Tyrannosaurus Rex arms. So stepping my left leg back, I'm going to bring this left knee to the ground. But first I'm going to try to find the right spacing so that I've got what feels like a decent lunge here. And then I'll just bring myself forward. Now when the back knee is on the ground, the front leg could drift slightly further forward than the toes. It really depends on how your knee feels about life. There have definitely been days where it feels really good and days where the knee feels a little more compromised. So choose appropriately. And then I'm going to back my hips up so that I fold forward, find this little hamstring stretch, and then flow forward until I feel this little stretch through the hip flexor belly area. So I'm flowing between these 2 points, nice and slow and rhythmic. Now I'm going to take my hips all the way back in a moment to the ground. I'm going to leave this leg kind of as it is, but go a little more to my right. You can also sit down and change the legs. I'll show you what to do in just a second. So essentially, I'm just going to sit myself down and then let this leg turn out. So some people can bring the foot right up against the hip. I cannot. Again, I just bring it in as close as I can. If this is not going to work for your knee, no matter how we shake this down, and for a lot of people, this internal rotation is very challenging, take it the opposite direction and do it that way. So you've got this foot on the inside and the leg is in an external rotation. See which one works better for you. Now, I like both, but this one has it's called the gate latch pose, which makes me think of fall for some reason. We're trying to hold in things that are behind gates this time of year. So, gates of hell, I don't know. So in any case, I'm doing it because it's fun for me to change things up. I do other poses in the springtime. So reaching out, so I'm gonna create length again through my side waist. And then you can hold onto the foot. I've got some blocks here so I can rest my elbow. And then I'm gonna give myself a nice big stretch. Now this particular setup tilts my pelvis. And so it's almost like the same tilt that I get from a triangle or a side angle. When I have the leg the other way, my pelvis is more upright, and so there's more side stretch through the side waist. So choose the one you think is best for you tonight. I'm trying to lengthen both sides evenly, so the bottom and the top are a more even stretch, rather than that sort of big opening on the side. But you can go the opposite direction. 2 more breaths. Now I'm gonna bring this leg around from the back up to the front. And before I go anywhere else, I like to do these little movements, just little jiggles, little pandiculative movements. All right, this guy is gonna go on top, and this is my twisty leg. So I'm gonna do this really simply. I'm just gonna bend the knee like that. That's it, that's as far as I'm going. You can wrap this leg over the top. You can do a much more dramatic sort of setup. So this one works best for me because it still lets me sit up nice and tall, and I can work just fine. If I try to do any more of a bind, it's a little too snug. So I'm gonna turn towards this leg. Notice how the pelvis might be helping, and again, same rules apply. I want my pelvis to be mostly stable because I'm interested in getting the twist in my upper back. That's where I carry all my tension. If I had a sacroiliac joint dysfunction, I would let the pelvis go into the twist with me, so I take away some of the pressure on that sacrum. And I don't want to overdo the low back anyway. I mostly want the twist to happen in my rib cage, right? Because that's the part of, those are the vertebrae that are built for twisting. Everything else, a little bit more, I mean the neck too, but you know, setting that aside. The lumbar spine really is not about twisting, it's about stability. So, it's built for that. So I'm kind of finding, so I've got this right leg, toes pointing up. I'm kind of drawing my inner thighs together, drawing myself up a little taller, feeling my shoulder blades move. So I'm moving my right shoulder blade a little bit forward. This is my left leg, and my left shoulder blade back and into the pocket that I've emptied with my right shoulder blade. It's almost like I'm trying to take my left shoulder blade where the right one belongs. And feeling that, it's right now sweet, sweet pressure in the upper back. But when I let it go, I'm hoping it'll be really good. 1 more breath. And then coming out, I'm gonna rinse out both shoulders, rinse out both legs, and we're gonna do this whole thing again, but on the other side. So I am gonna go just into my lunge from here, just coming up to all fours and moving my left leg forward. But you could throw in a vinyasa if you want to. If what hasn't been enough vinyasa for you on a given day. So I just want to kind of play with the angles, feel out how much is just right. Okay, so then I'm moving back, kind of folding over, feeling this kind of stretch through the back of the leg, moving forward, feeling that stretch through the front of my hip, and just pulsing back and forth. And the pulsation doesn't have to be very big. This one's pretty big, but it could be smaller. Doesn't have to be a big movement. Now I'm going to go forward 1 more time. And then I'm going to set this all the way back and do the gate pose, which I'm going to be a little bit backwards, but it might help to see it from both sides. Okay. So again, you can bring this foot as close to the outer hip as you can get it. That's as close as mine goes. I just kind of open up this area till it feels right. Again, you can switch the leg around and do it in the opposite way. I want to lengthen both sides, so I'm going to stretch from my underside of my ribs there into this shape, and then add onto it as I breathe. And I'm letting my legs kind of do what they naturally want to do here and work in my center, my core, a little bit more. And last pose here, or last breath. I come out of here, bring this leg around. Whoa. Give it a little jiggle. Oh, feeling the impact on the left side, right side of my ribs, side waist, neck. And then doing this twisting shape with the right leg up. And again, you can wrap or bind in any way you like. Again, allowing for, like, there might be some differences in the way your hip wants to interpret this pose. Allow for that. And then I'm trying to slide that right shoulder blade into the spot the left shoulder blade is now kind of moving out of. So I get a nice upper back, a little upper back love. One more big breath. Oh, and then I'm going to come out of there and change this whole thing around. Now, so I'm going to do one more thing before I get to Shavasana. And that's a kind of flowing bridge pose where I take the hips up and come back down. It actually has a name all unto itself, which is Dvipadipitham, which kind of implies that we're anchoring through the feet and we're lifting in a rhythmic fashion. So that's what we're up to. Now, if you want to follow along with me, do that. You can also do like a supported bridge where you put a block under your hips or something like a block, whatever you got at your house, that looks like that. Pillow, folded blanket, a Tupperware container, whatever you got. Put that underneath your hips and you can just hang out. Or you can just skip this part and do like a happy baby instead. So, well, as you like. Now, before I get to that, because I'm going to follow it with Shavasana, I'm just going to bring over some little soft, fluffy things. So I'm kind of ready for that to happen. Oh, hopefully it won't block your view here. You can still see what I'm up to. Okay. Perspective is interesting. So I'm laying on my back. I'm going to do this little just windshield wiper thing because I'm going to take my back through a kind of cobra-like shape again. Snuggling the shoulder blades in. So I want the shoulder blade to be like just kind of essentially almost like a little armor plate on my upper back. So it's just gently supporting the back of my heart and gives me a nice structure and support. And that also creates a little bit of an opening around my front shoulder stabilizer, pec minor, probably some other things too, but that helps open that space up, which when I spend too much time on my computer or on my phone, it's really good to have that little opening. Okay, so here's how it works. I'm just gonna lift my hips up however high they want to go. And then I take my toes up off the ground. I'm not trying to put a lot of pressure on my neck, so I just go to the point where I'm on that armor plate. And then I sort of come down, one vertebrae at a time. Try to feel each one touch the ground. Now, my flesh and my clothing touches the ground before my spine bones do. So I'm waiting for the spine bone, the little vertebrae, to touch the ground, right? And then I try to get the next one, and the next one, the next one. So it's nice and slow. I'm going to do it twice more. Just kind of taking it up. And I like this, again, this kind of idea of sort of moving in a sort of rhythmic, this is a really slow rhythm. It's like continental drift or lava. As opposed to like bubbling stream, but that's still, it's still a flow, right? We're going up and we're coming back down, kind of feeling I just like to feel like each little spiniest process of the vertebrae touch the ground. And the low back is trickier because they go in instead of sticking out. I just try to get as much as I can individual movement there as well. Once my sacrum touches the ground, I just let the whole thing come down, low back curve, reestablish itself. Now, for me, that feels like heaven. It's like a back massage and a yoga pose had a baby. It's really nice. Now, I'm going to do a little Shavasana. So I'm going to put a little pillow Under my head, it's just, in this case, just a blanket. But if you have a little neck pillow, or you have, you know, something you like, some people like their head held a little higher, so this one works really well for me. It holds my head just in alignment where it would normally want to land. And then, oh, because I have a lot of, a little extra lumbar curve, having the hip flexors relaxed is better for my low back. So I put a pillow under my legs so that when I extend them, if I can get away from my pants here, then there's this sense of just a kind of natural curve that happens in my low back and not an arching. I'm not trying to make homes for guinea pigs and other small creatures to find refuge. So just kind of settling in. Well, not under my low back anyway. I like to make homes for small animals, but not under my back. So allow yourself to relax. Notice the tendency that your body may have to hold tension in places, like could be around the eyes, could be around the jaw, back of the neck. See if you can let all of those places I just mentioned, the mouth and the eyes and the back of the neck, really just soften. I kind of notice how when you soften the muscles around the back of the eyes become kinder. And that when we soften the mouth and let the lips get fluffier, we just become more approachable, a little more accessible. And, you know, out there in the world, you can choose to put your mask back on, but in here, with just yourself on your mat, be authentically you. And drop the guard. And let the muscles in your neck and shoulders relax. You take off that little armor plate and just get softer. There's a kind of strength and vulnerability, and that's what we're going for. A little bit of humility. Take a nice big breath. Let go with a sigh. Give yourself a little wiggle of your fingers and toes and spread out the fingers and toes and then wiggle them again. Do a little rhythmic work with your wrists and ankles. You can stretch your body in all kinds of different directions. Knees come in. Give yourself a little back massage. It's good to hug your favorite yogi every day, so you can give yourself a little hug and then come up when you're ready. Or you can stay because, you know, you're at your house. I'm not judging. Let's take a big breath together to end everything. Namaste.